Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back. So, I'm sure some of you have been paying attention to what's been happening this weekend, which was the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders meeting. So, for those of you who don't know what Berkshire Hathaway is, that's Warren Buffett's company. So, during these annual meetings is where you'll hear Buffett and his business partner, Charlie Munger, answer live questions from the crowd. It's always interesting to see what they think about things and what they think about like the economy as a whole and what their opinion is, and try to get a glimpse of what their next moves might be going forward. Now, we're going to be not going through the entire shareholders meeting because that will take way too long, but I did want to focus on one thing in particular and some highlights that I found interesting, and one major area where I found myself disagreeing with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. So can you guess what that thing is, by the way? Anyways, I know when I say I'm disagreeing with Buffett or Munger, that's going to rub some people the wrong way, okay? So I know I'm going to get at least a few comments down below, left and right, from folks being like,
"How dare you disagree with Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett? They're the greatest of all time. You think you know better than Buffett?"
No, what I'm saying is that I'm not saying I'm better than Buffett. What I'm saying is that I just have a different opinion than Buffett and Munger, okay? So as legendary as an investor Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are, they're still human. They still make mistakes. They're not going to be right 100% of the time. I think that on this particular topic, though, they're making a huge mistake. So what am I talking about? Of course, I am talking about Bitcoin, as some of you have already guessed. So in particular, though, I want to mention what Charlie Munger had to say about Bitcoin. So if you guys don't know the dynamic between Buffett and Munger, by the way, you would know that Buffett is usually the more calm and reserved one, and he's the nice guy who will speak professionally even though he doesn't like something. But Munger, on the other hand, well, Charlie Munger does not mince words, okay? He'll come out like guns blazing at you if he hates something. He'll make it known. The Bitcoin community was not prepared for the wrath of Charlie Munger. At least I wasn't. So yeah, he basically just woke up and chose violence. So let me just say what was said during the meeting by Munger, and you'll see what I mean. Berkshire Hathaway Vice Chairman Charlie Munger's disdain towards Bitcoin has only intensified among the digital assets record run this year. This was from a CNBC article. Of course, I hate the Bitcoin success. The 97-year-old Munger said during a Q&A session at Berkshire's annual shareholder meeting on Saturday. Wow, he's 97, man. Like, I don't know another person that's as sharp as Charlie Munger at 97. So, I'm very impressed. But let's see what he had to say, okay? So, I don't welcome a currency that's so useful to kidnappers and extortionists and so forth, nor do I like just shuffling out of your extra billions and billions worth of dollars to somebody who just invented a new financial product out of thin air. I think I should say modestly that the whole damn development is disgusting and contrary to the interests of civilization, said Munger, a legendary investor in his own right. In my opinion, there's a lot of things wrong with these statements, okay? So let's try to break it down. So first, the age-old argument that Bitcoin is mainly used by criminals, and this myth has just been debunked already, so it simply isn't true. Now, according to ARK Invest and Chainalysis, less than 1% of Bitcoin's transactional volume is used for illegal or illicit purposes. I think this myth comes from the fact that Bitcoin was used way back in the day as a means of transaction on the black markets like Silk Road, which did facilitate a lot of illegal things like guns, drugs, human trafficking, and whatnot, but that site was shut down by the FBI in 2013, a long time ago, and the use cases, or just about every metric for Bitcoin since 2013, have evolved a lot. So I would almost argue that Bitcoin back in 2013 was a completely different thing than Bitcoin now. So it has not that much to do with what Bitcoin is now, because the use cases and everything has evolved so much. But if you still can't get past that association between Bitcoin and illegal activity, well, let me just remind you what other currency is used by kidnappers and extortionists. Yeah, that's right, US dollars. So if you go back to that chart from ARK Invest, you can see that more US dollars is used in illicit activity compared to Bitcoin. And if you're wondering why, well, just think to yourself, if you're trying to do something illegal, which one is more or less traceable? A publicly accessible blockchain that literally everyone can see every single transaction, or a stack of USD cash? right? I'm just saying. So if you actually think about it, Bitcoin is not as good as USD when it comes to doing illegal things because it's literally designed to be kind of open and traceable. So yeah, I would say that US dollars are like much worse in terms of facilitating illegal activity compared to Bitcoin. And lastly, I think it's a bit unfair to blame Bitcoin because it can be used for illegal activity. Yes, people do use it for illegal things. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. But one of Berkshire's biggest positions is in a company called Coca-Cola. You might have heard of them. They make sugary drinks, right? So the sugary drinks that Coca-Cola makes are not the most healthy. And if someone gets diabetes from drinking too much Coke, is that Coca-Cola's fault? Should we be blaming Coca-Cola or should we be trying to like ban Coca-Cola? Is Coca-Cola stock absolutely disgusting, right? Should we be like cheering on Coca-Cola's collapse because they're just the worst, right? Because they make sugary drinks that are causing diabetes? Is the rise of Coca-Cola stock absolutely disgusting? Just something to think about, right? So moving on. Regarding Charlie Munger's statements about not wanting to shove billions and billions of dollars into a currency that someone just invented out of thin air, well, this one is a little ironic, in my opinion. The definition of fiat money is that it is not backed by anything. So fiat means let it be done. So what fiat money is when the government just prints out a banknote and gives it to you and says, this is worth something rather than nothing because I tell you it's worth something rather than nothing. And guess what's a fiat currency? Yeah, that's right, US dollars once again. And, you know, to be fair, every currency that's government issued around the world is pretty much fiat at this point. So whether or not Munger says that he wants to put his wealth into something that was just created out of thin air, I don't think, has he not been paying attention? Because the US just created trillions and trillions of dollars basically out of thin air just in the past year or so. And, you know, with the new Biden administration, he's pushing all these like infrastructure bills and all these like new government spending that is going to cost trillions and trillions of dollars more of money. Again, I'm not going to get into politics. I'm not going to like say whether or not it's right. We should be printing like trillions and trillions of dollars and injecting it into the economy. But, you know, the fact is that it is happening, and that is a fact. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can't print it, right? You have to mine it. That's kind of the whole point. And if you just think about your typical Bitcoin farm or Bitcoin miner farm and how much power goes into it, and even then the supply is controlled. So let's say if you wanted to mine 1 million Bitcoin in a short amount of time, and I give you unlimited computing power, you still would not be able to do so. It's literally impossible because it is algorithmically determined how much like Bitcoin is generated per day. And lastly, I really don't mean to say this in a condescending way. I'm genuinely curious to see as to how and why Charlie Munger thinks that Bitcoin is contrary to the interests of civilization. Because in my opinion, I think the exact opposite. I think that, in my opinion, cryptocurrencies are the next natural step in terms of the progression of civilization. So back when there was no church and state separation, government was less efficient because people went to war over religion all the time because the state and religion was one thing. And we thought, hey, maybe it's better if we separate the two. So then we got the separation of church and state, and then eventually that morphed into like Renaissance and Industrial Revolution and all that stuff, right? So because governments became much more efficient. Now we're experiencing a separation between state and money with Bitcoin. As in, if you have Bitcoin, that's totally independent of any state. And I shouldn't say Bitcoin, I should just say cryptocurrencies in general. And who knows what kind of revolution this will bring to society. And I think that one of the things that inspired me the most to this argument was that I saw a Michael Saylor interview. Michael Saylor, if you don't know, he's the CEO of MicroStrategy. And I think MicroStrategy is the biggest publicly traded company that owns the most amount of Bitcoin. So yeah, I saw a Michael Saylor interview, and I'll link to it down below if I can find the link for that. But essentially the idea is that if you analyze why countries go to war, it's often over things like wealth and resources. So it's like they have oil, they have gold, they have whatever, right? And we need to invade it, that country, to get it because we don't have as many things as they do. So that's why countries go to war. Well, if you store all your wealth in Bitcoin, pretend you're a country and you store all your wealth in Bitcoin, it's all of a sudden not confiscatable. So imagine if you had a building full of gold. Well, then an invading country could just bomb the building, kill everyone inside, and then just grab all the gold out of the rubble. But if you're a country and you stored all your money in Bitcoin, what are they going to do, right? So the way that big corporations and institutions store Bitcoin is way different than the way that you and I do it, right? They don't just store it on like a Ledger Nano X or something like that. They would actually use a multi-signatory method. So think of nuclear codes and launching nuclear missiles, right? So you need that. You need more than one person involved to actually launch a nuclear missile. So not one person has all the ingredients that's needed to launch a nuclear code. So same thing with Bitcoin, right? So the way that things like companies like Coinbase do it, they don't have like one person that's in charge of like all the money. Otherwise, like if that one person leaks that code, then like somebody could swipe the entire vault, right? So the way that like big companies like Coinbase do is that they have like different people that are in charge of different parts of the key. So not one person has the whole key. So you won't be able to get any Bitcoin from invading a country because you literally have to find out who all the multi-signatory people are and gather them all into one room, or like kidnap them all in one go and like force them to reveal the key or whatnot. So it's just not practical, right? So you can't confiscate any wealth from a country by invading it, and the only way to get Bitcoin from that other country is if you provide a good or service that that country needs, and they would voluntarily pay you in Bitcoin. So I hope I don't have to tell you why that not having wars is good for the progression of civilization. And I think that in that sense, Bitcoin really promotes peace because like countries have less incentive to invade another country because there's not that much to gain from invading that other country now. So because wealth is separated from the state. So once again, I'm honestly curious as to how Bitcoin is contrary to civilization, because in my opinion, it's the exact opposite. It's pushing civilization forward. Anyways, overall, I gotta say I'm pretty disappointed in these comments from Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett too. So Warren Buffett, he kind of dodged the question, right? He said he's going to dodge the question, and he actually dodged the question. So, I mean, he said comments in the past where he was very negative on Bitcoin, and it's clear that his opinion has not changed either. He just wasn't as blunt as Charlie Munger. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty disappointed in Berkshire Hathaway's response to Bitcoin, and yeah, I'll be selling out all my shares of Berkshire Hathaway soon. And to be honest, it's not because of the Bitcoin thing. It's not just because of it. It certainly is part of it. But I just don't think that Berkshire has been doing its shareholders justice for the past few years or so. So for example, the company had over $100 billion of cash during the initial pandemic when it first hit. Right, so instead of deploying the money to buy the dip where like the S&P 500 was crashing by like 10% a day, you guys remember March 2020, right? So instead of deploying the money to buy the dip, they sold airlines at pretty much the rock bottom. So yeah, like literally it's like a story almost. It doesn't even feel real because they literally somehow timed the bottom to sell the airlines. So yeah, they also sold banks like Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs at close to the bottom as well. And clearly they're not going to buy any Bitcoin. But right now they're sitting at about $145 billion of cash, which is being eaten away by inflation. So instead of like deploying the cash throughout the past like little while the market was down, they've been accumulating more cash, which again is being eaten away, right? So if you look at Berkshire Hathaway's portfolio, about 40% of it is just Apple stocks. So it's not even like that well diversified, if you ask me. And you guys know I love Apple, right? So Apple's a great company, not going to deny that. But I can just go and buy Apple stock myself, right? I don't need to do it through buying Berkshire stock. So I'm not saying that Berkshire is going to crash and burn or anything like that. Clearly, they're not going to, right? Because they're one of the biggest companies in America. So they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And I think that they are going to most likely outperform the market still within the coming years, just because you have all that experience and all that knowledge from Buffett and Charlie Munger that is still worth a lot, right? They're still one of the most legendary investors of all time. But in terms of the direction that the company is going, it just feels like a great TV show, but it's in its 10th season. You know what I mean, right? It's like you've been eating your favorite meal, but you've been eating it every day for like 10 years. So the company just feels old and stale and tired. And I'd rather just put my money into companies that are innovating and more forward thinking, companies that just align with my values more. Like, for example, I don't know, Tesla and Coinbase, of course, but like Coinbase is exclusively cryptocurrency, which obviously is not Berkshire's cup of tea, right? So yeah, I think that I would rather put my money into more like innovative companies. That's what I'm saying. But that's just my opinion though. So I know a lot of you might disagree with me. And if you do, please leave an intelligent comment down below and don't just be like, hey, Andy, you're stupid. Like, right? Like, I love to know why you disagree with me if you do. And if you think that Buffett is right, or if you think Charlie Munger is right, yeah, let me know down in the comments. I do read all of the comments. So if you like this video, please be sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, links down below in the description as always. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.